Alright, so hey guys, welcome to another video, and today I'm gonna talk a little bit about my Bloodied VATS Gunslinger build that I finally finished switching into. Now, if you've never heard about Bloodied setups, which I highly doubt, it is essentially a build archetype that can be used with multiple different weapon types that sits on very low life and uses mainly stealth but oftentimes serendipity to survive while dishing out crazy damage. The idea here is that you will sit in radiation until you have as little life as you're comfortable running around with, and then you will stack all the things that provide benefits when you're on low life, such as the unyielding legendary affix for armor, the adrenal reaction mutation, or the bloodied affix for weapons, which is where the name of the build comes from. Now, while this can be used with essentially any weapon type, it works particularly well with either weapons that are silent or weapons that can be silent, such as rifles, pistols, or bows and crossbows and that kind of stuff, because then you can utilize sneaking, which will make you essentially invisible to most enemies thanks to the high agility you get from unyielding armor. It can actually be quite ridiculous at times. I've had enemies bump into me and just be like, huh, what was that? Well, I guess it was nothing, while staring at me, and I've had Scorch Beasts literally land on top of my head and not notice me. That's how sneaky you can be if you get few pieces of unyielding armor and you're willing to sit on like 10 to 20% life. And the damage, oh my god, the damage. Here is a 1-star bloodied 10mm pistol versus a Scorch Beast. Yeah, I would say that's not bad. Now, the build isn't set in stone, so feel free to experiment and play around with different setups, but what I went with is 6, 6, 4, 5, 6, 15, and 14. And I found it to be extremely good as a sneaky VATS gunslinger. Now, for strength, I'm a hoarder, so I have pack rat and traveling pharmacy to reduce the weight of chem and junk because, you know, I just can't help myself. But if you're not a hoarder, you can take these out and put in something like blocker, which is really good because it makes you take less melee damage. Or you can even put in your own melee perk like Incisor, Gladiator, and that kind of stuff. Then for perception, we have glow sights, which gives you an enormous amount of damage versus glowing enemies, which are generally the beefiest one. So this is a lot of damage for not a lot of investment. And concentrated fire, which gives you the ability to target different limbs, which allows you to hit headshots in VATS, which is a great amount of damage, but it also allows you to focus, which gives you 20% chance to hit whenever you fire in VATS, and it gives you more damage as you fire in VATS. So a ton of accuracy and a ton of damage. Then for endurance, I'm running fireproof at rank 3, and this is mainly because I do the Scorch Beast Queen a lot, and fireproof reduces the damage of their sonic attack. So if you're not fighting Scorch Beasts and you're not scared of grenades, you can just take this out and put in something else. And then I'm also running Aqua Boy, because radiation is really dangerous for this build. You have very little health left, so if you fall into water without Aqua Boy, you can die before you get out. You don't, however, need this if you're running the Chinese stealth armor instead of unyielding armor. Then for charisma, we have Tenderizer, which makes it so that whenever we hit an enemy, they take 5% more damage. This is just a neat way of multiplying our damage. And we have, of course, a Lone Wanderer, so that if you're not in a party, you take less damage and you regenerate AP faster. Next, we have Intelligence, where we have Gunsmith, so our guns break slower, and Scrapper, which is just really nice for getting a ton of steel from scrapping weapons. This allows you to basically not worry about steel at all and just focus on lead. Next on the menu, we have Agility, where if you're using semi-automatic pistols like me, you're going to run 3 Gunslinger cards at rank 1 because we won't be able to fit in rank 3 ones because we have way too much stuff in here. Then we have Gung Fu, mainly for the functionality, which switches you from one target to another in VATS, but it also gives you more damage as you go from target to target. And I mean, that is nice, right? More damage is always good, but it's mainly there for the functionality so that you don't jump in and out of VATS all the time. Then we're going to slap in rank 1 Adrenaline, which is just a fantastic card. It gives you more damage as you kill enemies, up to a maximum of 36% for 30 seconds, which is just great for one rank card. We follow that up with Modern Renegade, mainly for the excellent hipfire accuracy, which is what VATS uses to calculate its hit chance. It's hipfire accuracy, not sighted accuracy, and it also gives you a small chance to cripple a limb, which is always good. Though with the amount of damage this bow does, you would generally kill stuff long before you actually cripple it. And then we have some sneaky stuff, starting off with Escape Artist, which allows you to lose enemies in stealth, which is really good, but it also means that you can move at full speed without affecting your detection meter. This is pretty important, otherwise you have to move pretty slowly to avoid getting detected. Now after that, we have Sneak, which improves our stealth by 75%, which is incredibly good, especially when we stack it on top of all the other stuff we have. And finally, we have Covert Operative, which gives us a bigger multiplier on our stealth hits. Now, my luck setup might look a little bit weird, but let me explain. I have Grim Reaper Sprint, which gives you a 35% chance every time you kill anything in VATS that you regenerate activate all your action points. This just allows you to keep going when you have a bigger crowd against you. Then I personally chose Bloody Mess for the 15% flat damage increase, and I chose this over the crit cards because I just can't get used to the rhythm of firing off one crit after another. I just can't do it. So then we have Start Genes at rank 2. This is a must-have if you're running mutations because it means you can't gain new mutations, but you also can't rout away the ones you already have. Then I have Class Freak at rank 3, which reduces the negative effects of mutations you have, and I really don't like the negative effects of the mutations that I have. And finally, I have Serendipity, which gives you, if you're under 30% health, a 45% chance to straight up dodge damage. And this is here just so I have a chance to survive when I get sniffed out of stealth, because if you don't have this and something sniffs you out, you're dead. Also, a funny thing about Serendipity is that it can actually dodge fall damage, so if you happen to fall off a cliff, there's a good chance you'll survive. Now, as far as mutations are concerned, I have 5. The most important one is Adrenal Reaction, which gives you more weapon damage the lower on health you are. Then I have Eagle Eyes for perception and crit damage in VATS. Then I have Healing Factor, mainly for the negative effect actually, because it reduces the effect of Radaway, so you don't Radaway too much radiation at a time, so you don't have to sit in radiation every time you use Radaway. Then I have Marsupial, mainly for the crazy jump height, so that I can get to places where enemies can't get to me, and it also gives you some extra carry weight. And finally I have Speed Demon, which makes you move and reload faster. The most important legendary affix for weapons is of course Bloodied, which gives you more damage the lower on health you are, and it can actually be quite strong. As you can see, I can get a 10mm pistol to do 120 damage per shot, which is kind of nuts. And the way I mod my pistols is always the same. I go for a severe receiver with a true long barrel, a precise grip, a perforating magazine, a reflex sight, and a suppressor. But play around with it because there's no guarantee that you will like this particular setup as well. Then if you're not going for the Chinese stealth armor, which does have its benefits, but it's not as strong, you want to go with unyielding armor, which gives you up to 3 to all stats with the exception of endurance when you're on low life. This makes a massive difference. I have 4 pieces of unyielding armor and I'm on low life, and I have 18 strength, 26 perception, 17 charisma, 17 intelligence, 30 agility, and 27 luck. So on top of being able to pass all the skill checks in the game, I have great carrying capacity, I have great accuracy in VATS, I have good prices with vendors, I craft very high condition gear, I have a ton of action points to use in VATS, and I build crits extremely fast. Now, as I said in the beginning, this is more of a build archetype, so you can use it with any weapon type you like, with of course silent weapons being preferable because you can use stealth. So you can very easily take out the Gunslinger cards and put in Gorilla cards to run fully automatic pistols instead, or you can take 6-ish points from agility, throw them into perception, and go with Rifleman or Commando as well. And it will also do great damage with the new bow or even the old crossbow. You can also just not use VATS and be a sneaky sniper, or you can put some points into strength and go with melee. Some people even run this with heavy guns and they don't use stealth at all. There's just a lot of stuff you can do with this. The reason I went with this version of the build, even though it's probably the weakest one of the Bloodied setups, is because I just really wanted to use the 10mm pistol and the pipe revolver. And I also wanted to focus a little bit more on agility so that my stealth is super good and I have a ton of action points to use in VATS. Now, the one thing I was really worried about with this setup was survivability, because I saw people running around with almost no life and just destroying things, and I was like, that's quite nice, but it's probably not for me because I'm not gonna be running around on low life, being like one hit away from death. But even though you are very squishy, I mean, most enemies can just straight up one-shot you if they find you at higher levels. You probably won't die all that often, because you have so much agility. If you're using unyielding armor, you are, as I've said already, almost invisible to them. Plus, you're gonna be doing so much damage, you will kill enemies before they discover you, and even if they do discover you, you have serendipity, so you have a good chance to dodge them. So it turns out it's actually one of the more survivable setups that I've used. It's not as survivable as like a heavy gunner with a vampire weapon, but it's not too shabby. The biggest problem is actually radiation, just taking random radiation like during the Scorch Beast Queen fight, or during a normal Scorch Beast fight, or just wandering too close to a radiation source. And ghouls. Ghouls are probably the most dangerous enemy, because there's usually a lot of them, so if you get discovered, chances are you're not gonna dodge all of them. Luckily though, ghouls are pretty daft, they're not very perceptive. But anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to say, so I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I will see you some other time. Bye bye.